Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for. To me, the topic is Notre Dame. And the topic is Brian Kelly specifically. Notre Dame goes to Soldier Field. They beat Wisconsin 41-13. In the process, Brian Kelly becomes the all-time winningest coach in Notre Dame football history, a stat which boggles my mind. And I know this is a new era of college football where you play conference championships, playoff games, all that stuff. But the bottom line remains, we all grew up Notre Dame history, Ara Parseghian, Newt Rockne. And to know that Notre Dame is now, with Brian Kelly as the winningest coach, that's insane to me. A guy that we are watching with our own two eyes, Brian Kelly is the winningest coach in Notre Dame football history. And so as we start to talk about that game, as we start to talk about Notre Dame as a whole, let me just say this. I think somehow, after years of being quote-unquote overrated as a program, I actually think Notre Dame is underrated as a program. And I think what Brian Kelly is doing is one of the greatest things in sports that nobody talks about. And you might probably think I'm crazy right now, but let me explain why. First of all, let's start with the game itself. We don't have to spend a ton of time on it. It wasn't the prettiest game. And I don't even think this is like a great Notre Dame team. I don't think we have to talk about Notre Dame like, oh my God, the playoff. What does it mean? How do they match up with Clemson? Or no, I don't think they're Alabama or Georgia. But let's give them credit, first of all, for the win. They win 41-13. Close, low-scoring game for most of it. It was 3-0 Wisconsin after the first quarter, 10-3 Notre Dame at halftime, 10-10 going into the fourth quarter, and then we got 31 points from Notre Dame thanks to 2 pick sixes from Graham Mertz, who's just terrible. I've already talked about him, and also thanks to a kick return for a touchdown from Notre Dame. And so again, I don't think that we need to celebrate Notre Dame beating Wisconsin as though they just beat Alabama and Tuscaloosa, okay? But I also, by the way, I don't think we should discredit it either. Keep in mind, first of all, Notre Dame lost a ton off last year's team. And I know you could sit there and say, well, dude, Torres, it's week 3, it's week 4. Like, who cares who you lost off last year's team? Well, that's true. But there's a lot of people that lost a lot of good players that aren't playing like Notre Dame is right now. Think Clemson wouldn't love to trade spots with Notre Dame? Think Ohio State wouldn't love to trade spots with Notre Dame? Can we at least acknowledge Notre Dame has been more impressive than Oklahoma, who's played 4 home games, needed a last-second field goal against West Virginia, needed a bunch of miracle special teams plays against Nebraska? I mean, we could say Notre Dame, this isn't a vintage Notre Dame team, but considering everything they lost and considering how they look relative to the other teams that lost a ton, I do think we got to give them a little bit of credit. And it's not as though they didn't deal with adversity in this game as their starting quarterback, Jack Cohn, goes down. And Drew Pine, should mention a Connecticut kid, nice, humble Connecticut kid, New Canaan, Connecticut, stand up. Drew Pine comes in and wins them the game. And so, again, we don't have to belabor the point. This isn't an incredible win that we'll be telling our grandkids about, and Wisconsin's the greatest. No, they're not. And I don't even know much what to make of this Notre Dame team through 4 weeks. But what I do think is relevant is that Notre Dame came into this game as close to a touchdown underdog, meaning that just about everybody that bet on this game thought that Notre Dame was going to lose and lose convincingly. Instead, they win by 28 points. And why that is important is this. It continues a trend over the last 4 years that I don't think people realize. If you're not named Alabama and if you're not named Clemson, Notre Dame's probably going to beat you, okay? Because this program that I have been told for years is quote-unquote overrated, here is their record since the start of the 2018 season. Overall, Notre Dame is 47-5. Dating back to the start of the 2018 season. 47 wins, 5 losses dating back to the 2018 season. The 5 losses, by the way, Clemson in the college football playoff in 2018. Clemson, by the way, beat Alabama worse in the national championship game 2 weeks later. The following year, 2019, they lost at Georgia. They lost at Michigan. Last year, they lose to Clemson in the ACC championship game, and they lose to Alabama in the college football playoff. So 47-5, dating back to 2018. With the 5 losses, Clemson in the college football playoff, at Georgia, at Michigan, Clemson on a neutral field, Alabama on a neutral field. If that is overrated, people, if that is overrated, if Notre Dame is overrated right now in the college football landscape, then here's the thing. Everybody in college football is overrated except for Alabama, Clemson, maybe Ohio State and Georgia. There are 125 teams that would love to be overrated the way that Notre Dame is. And I think it's a testament to Brian Kelly, who I believe is also now gone from overrated, or at the very least properly rated, to underrated. And what's interesting about Notre Dame, I think their trajectory as a program is about as interesting as anything I can ever remember. Because we've seen a lot of different ways to build, maintain, sustain a program in college football. I don't know that we've ever really seen anything quite like what has happened at Notre Dame over the last 12, 13 years that Brian Kelly has been there. We've seen the coach come in and have immediate success. Nick Saban, Alabama, year 2 in the SEC championship game. If they win that, they go play for a national championship. Year 3, they win their first national championship under Saban. Urban Meyer comes in, Ohio State, year 1, Ohio State's undefeated. Not good. They're not eligible to play in the postseason. If they are, they're potentially playing for a national championship. We've seen a coach like Lincoln Riley come in and continue the trajectory under Bob Stoops. We've seen a coach like Ryan Day come in and continue the trajectory that Urban Meyer had set up. But we've never really seen anything quite like Brian Kelly has done at Notre Dame. Comes to Notre Dame in the fall of 2010, that is his first season. 8-5, 8-5, no big deal. Year 3, Notre Dame plays for a national championship. We're told it can't be done in this modern era. Notre Dame competing for a national championship. They are in the national championship game. They get destroyed by Alabama. From there, a couple good seasons, couple bad seasons. Then it bottoms out in 2016 with a 4-8 overall mark. And why it's interesting is because Brian Kelly, to his credit, did some reflection and basically stripped down the program and built it back up. By the way, credit to Notre Dame's administrators for not bailing on him. There was a large contingent of the fan base that wanted him gone. They stuck by him, and he has restructured the program, brought in new coaches, new blood, new this, new that. And here's what they've done since that 4-8 season in 2016. 10-3, and then that, of course, is followed by the 47-5 stretch that I continued. So 10-3 in 2017, 12-1 in 2018, 11-2 in 2019, 10-2 in 2020, and now 4-0 in 2021. And again, we've just never seen anything quite like it in recent football history, where you have the coach that builds it to the top, then it craters, then he builds it back up again. Only that's exactly what Brian Kelly has done, as Notre Dame is now 4-0, and they're going to be in the top 10 when the new AP poll comes out on Monday. And when I look at Notre Dame, and when I see what they've done, and when I see the fact that they are now 47-5 over the last couple of years, I'm just going to reiterate what I said a minute ago. There is no reason in modern college football that Notre Dame should be as good as it is. I know they were good a million years ago. I know they were good in the 50s, 60s, 70s when our grandparents were watching college football. It ain't 1956 anymore, people, okay? And I'm just telling you, there is no reason that Notre Dame should be so good, and it's a credit to Brian Kelly. And I know what you're sitting there saying, well, Torres, they have every advantage going in college football. All right, let's talk about it. Let's talk about every advantage that Notre Dame has in modern college football. What are you going to tell me? Well, they have all their games on national TV thanks to NBC. I mean, they're the only team that has an exclusive contract with a major TV network. But they are far from the only team that play. You know who plays on national TV every week right now in college football? Literally everybody. I am an alum of UConn. UConn is the worst program in FBS football right now. Every single one of UConn games have been on national TV this year. If I wanted to watch every painstaking minute of all 4 of their losses, shout out to UConn, they almost beat Wyoming on Saturday. If I wanted to watch every minute of all of their painful losses, and it's actually 5 losses now because they played in week 0, not 4, I could have watched every single one. So don't tell me, Notre Dame has a national TV contract. Everybody plays on national TV every week. Vanderbilt does. Purdue does. Washington State does. Everybody plays on that. What advantage is playing on national TV? Well, they have all the resources. They have so much money, they don't even know. You know who has money in college football right now? Again, literally everybody. Big Ten teams made over $50 million a piece last year just in TV revenue. So I don't know where everyone gets this. Well, Notre Dame has such an advantage with resources because, well, Purdue made $50 million in football last year just in TV. If they didn't make $1 off merchandise, ticket sales, parking, concessions, they made $50 million. Same with Iowa. Same with all these lousy Big Ten teams. I can't even think of all of them right now off the top of my head. I'm so fired up. Purdue, like I said. Indiana football made $50 million. Minnesota football, PJ Flex rowing the boat through a pile of cash. Don't tell me Notre Dame has better resources. Everybody has money in college football right now. I heard this too. Well, they recruit nationally. Yeah, so does everybody. Where is Alabama's quarterback from? Bryce Young? He's from Pasadena, 5 minutes from where I'm recording right now, yelling and screaming. Where's Clemson's quarterback from? DJ? Oh, he's from Southern California. Georgia's top quarterback, JT Daniels from California. Top receiver, from California. Kendall Milton, their third leading rusher from California. So don't tell me Notre Dame recruits nationally. All the great programs do. So those are all the things that Notre Dame has. Oh, and they get more TV exposure. They get more exposure in the media. You guys love them. You guys never stop talking about them. At least they win every. Yeah, they get covered a lot. Everybody gets covered a lot in 2021, okay? At least they win. Don't tell me Notre Dame gets covered too much. How do they get covered relative to, I don't know, Texas? Who gets more media exposure than Texas? USC, Miami, Florida State. Notre Dame doesn't get covered any more or less than those teams. At least Notre Dame wins. So don't tell me that they have all these crazy advantages, because they don't. But you know what they do have? They have major disadvantages, and they still manage to win at an insane level here in college football in 2021. We just talked about the fact that they basically have no real advantages. Here's the disadvantages. Small Catholic school in the middle of nowhere, okay? And I know we have a lot of actually listeners in Indiana. I think it's the third most listened to state on this podcast. Shout out Kentucky, number 1. Shout out Tennessee, number 2. Shout out Indiana, number 3. Most downloads coming from the state of Indiana. I love you guys. I love the Hoosiers. Shout out Mike Woodson. But what I'm telling you, I've driven through South Bend. There ain't much there. It's a small Catholic school. It's a weird setup. Not weird in a bad way, but definitely in a different way. No co-ed dorms, just as an example. That's just an example of what it is. 8,000 undergrads. I mean, you're comparing an 8,000 undergraduate school in 2021, no co-ed dorms, to the University of Alabama, which has 38,000 people. Comparing it to the University of Texas, which has 51,000 people. So Texas, 51,000 people in Austin. Notre Dame, 8,000 people in South Bend, Indiana. Which one should be better to you on paper? Because to me, it's probably the school in Texas that has all the same resources, all the same money, in a beautiful city, talent-rich state, whatever. So small Catholic school. And then when it comes to the recruiting, like I said a minute ago, remember, what did I tell you? Oh, they recruit nationally. Yeah, they recruit nationally. So does everybody. And the pool that they have is so much smaller. And so it's no disrespect to an Alabama. It's no disrespect to a Georgia. It's no disrespect to an Ohio State. But I'm going to take a wild guess. If Nick Saban wants someone to get into school at Alabama, I don't think he has to go to the admissions office and plead their case. I'm pretty sure it's like, Coach rubber stamp this one, he's coming to Bama. Ryan Day rubber stamp this one, he's coming to Ohio State. No disrespect to the admissions office there, to the students there, to the alums there. I'm just telling you, Notre Dame's a different deal. Small school, real academic standards. It's hard to get into. The classwork is hard once you're there in the middle of nowhere. I'm just telling you, if I can give a 30,000-foot view on everything I've just said, everything I yelled and screamed about over the last 5-7 minutes, just think about this. Year is 2021. Not 1974, not 1948. This ain't when World War II, when your grandma was whatever. This is 2021. And we have a sport where a small Catholic school with 8,000 undergrads in the middle of Indiana is competing on the same level, maybe just a tiny level below Alabama and Clemson and Georgia. And everybody else, they destroy. Destroy North Carolina. Destroy USC. Destroy whoever. We should be appreciating this. And that's all I'm saying, and we should be appreciating Brian Kelly, because in the modern era of college football, I just don't believe that they should be as good as they are. This is not a situation. This, again, I don't want to belabor the point. It's not 1945, whatever. But I have told this story many times, and I'll continue to tell it. Last year, college football playoff, they're playing Alabama. And I have family over. It's New Year's Day. I'm getting ready to go do Fox Sports Radio. And I remember sitting on the couch, kind of had the game on, and, family's in town, and they're kind of saying, so, like, who do you want to win this game? And I kind of just explained to them exactly what I just said to you guys. I said, I'm kind of rooting for the team with the gold helmets. I'm kind of rooting for the team with the gold helmets because when I look at that team with the gold helmets, they're playing the same sport as the team with the crimson helmets on, but they're really not. They can't recruit the same players. They don't have the same advantages. They don't have the same number of recruits right in their own area. I didn't even talk about the fact that Indiana locally produces probably 2 or 3 5-stars a year compared to Texas or Alabama or Georgia, which produces 10, 15, 20 of them. Maybe not 5 stars, but high 4 stars, low 4 stars, whatever. So I just want to give Brian Kelly a ton of credit. And I know, and what some of you will say, and I do think you're right on this, at the end of the day, it is about winning, right? And to quote Herm Edwards, you play to win the game. And so I get that. I get that at the highest level against the best teams, against the truly, 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 truly elite of this sport, Notre Dame has not won. They have not beat Clemson when they're fully healthy. They beat them with Trevor Lawrence. They have not beat Alabama. They have not beat Georgia. But they've been competitive. They've been a player 2 away. And in this era of college football, I think that's incredible.